Thanks for doing this for us, Lee. Just give it a... I don't know if you really have any sort of insight really at the moment, but what sort of season do you think we can expect generally, given the fact that, you know, all the circumstances, etc., that's they're having to contend with at the moment?
We can only go off what we've seen in other sports, and I suppose a bit of Super League last year, really. Landscape's changing by the month, I say, but I think you'd expect the worst to have been over in regards of the COVID itself. So by the time we get back, it should only get easier, you would think, as the season passes on. But, I mean, if you look at sort of Football League and lower down the football pyramid, they still seem to struggle with games being postponed with COVID issues and isolation. So I think certainly for that first couple of months, we've got to expect that. Hence why people have gone with bigger squads. And I do think you will always have people missing through isolating or getting it themselves. It's just how many you're going to get it with. But we've gone with a bigger squad. Most people look like they've done that. There's obviously the removal of dual reg, so people have just seem to have gone bigger so they can get through a full season, really, just expecting it. I've seen that it needs 7 people, I think, from your squad to be isolating for you to be able to postpone a game. So it just remains to be seen whether it gets to that or not. But it's going to be disrupted, certainly. I just expect it to ease as it goes on, I would say. But who knows? None of us were involved in Super League last year, so it's all new to us as well.
Do you think the table might go to points percentage?
It is anyway, isn't it? It's going points per game, isn't it? It's already on that. So that's pretty much saying already they don't expect all games to be fulfilled. I know they were talking about a couple of free weeks where if you got a game postponed, you'd better put it in there. But if you've already filled that date, you're struggling then to rearrange another one. So in all likelihood, there might be some games where you just don't play them. But for me, I mean, even if we get 7 people isolating, but we've still got enough to play the game, we're going to play it. It's not we want to play games, so it won't be a case of, right, we've got 7 missing, great, that we can postpone that one. If I've still got 15 men standing, we'll play. And because we've missed rugby for so long that we just want to get games on now. That's the reason we'll play 2 friendlies. We're going to go hard for the Challenge Cup. We want to get through and get as far of that as we can. We certainly don't want to be losing in any games. You know, we were one of the very few clubs that were really, really pushing to play last year when others weren't that keen. And we've missed it. You know, maybe that's because we got off to a good start and we were in a good spot that we wanted to do. But at the end of the day, I coach because we want to play games and I want to coach rugby, and players want to play. So we'll be doing everything we can safety-wise to make sure we never get to a position where we have 7. But even if we do, if we've still got enough bodies to fit even a 15, we'll do it.
How big a challenge will that be, given the fact you have semi-pro players going from one work setting to another, whereas in Super League they can, to a certain extent, bubble their players? How big a challenge will it be for Championship sides and non-Super League teams?
Yeah, I mean, it should be. But then again, wherever you work in, they should also have the precautions in place. So they should be adhering to social distance rules themselves in the workplace, wherever they do. And obviously, we're trying to do that as best we can as well through the guidelines. So, yeah, it does. It adds an extra risk factor. You come into contact with more people than just a full-time Super League player should do. But, you know, touch wood, we've done all our testing now once, then twice a week, and we've not had 1 positive. So we're doing all right. Some lads have had it and have had to isolate from getting it from work. But we just make sure that they don't come in and they're well clear. So it's just 1 person that we're missing. You're not going to stop that happening. I think what it is try to stop it from coming into your camp and spreading, because obviously we know that it spreads very quickly. So we've got a pretty good setup in place that, you know, once a lad flags it up, that's it. They don't come in. So we don't have any outbreaks or any spreads at our place. Everyone's different. You know, we're lucky in our facilities and our setup that there's just us there. We're not having to share facilities with anyone. You know, we've got sole use of our gym that we've got, obviously a physio room. We've got a 3G pitch outdoors. We've literally got everything. I know others are having to share and book facilities and stuff. That might be a bit more difficult for them. But But we're probably in a good spot like that. And also our medical staff, our doctors, the club doctor at Castleford as well, Nick Rayner. So he's learnt a lot through what Castleford had to go through. So, we were already prepped up before we started back in November of how things would have to be. And, we think we've done a pretty good job.
And just finally for me, Lee, in terms of the squad that you've managed to assemble there, I know it's a pretty onerous question at this point in time, but is there someone that you want to see break through this year? Is there someone that you would sort of tip us up to look out for this year?
I never like saying it. I mean, if I say I want someone to break through, that means I want someone to miss out. That's not very fair, is it? But no, there's a couple of guys that, a bit unknown, I'd say, or we don't quite know how they're going to go. Someone like Joe Wardle broke through as a Super League player a few years back, retired at 22 with hip injuries, and then sort of made a bit of a comeback for the reserves last year. And then, we've got hold of him. So, I mean, someone like that who was good enough to break through as an 18, 19-year-old into a Super League team, is a bit older now, sort of got over the hip injury that forced him to retire. If he can hit somewhere near, good, his top form of what he ran a few years back, we've got a Super League player there. Someone like Bailey Liu came over from playing in the regional leagues in Oz, went to West Wales because he knew the coach there. The coach left straight away, so he was left in a bit of a spot where, he was stuck out on a bit of a limb down at West Wales. So he's come up to us, wants to try his hand up here a little bit. He's got ambitions to play the Super League. He's looked really good in training, and I'm looking forward to seeing him play. We've got quite a few like that, and to be honest, that's what you have to do at Dewsbury. We can get some guys in that have got the experience and they're going to be good. But we've always got to unearth these talents. People like our fullback Joe Martin, he was just at Siddle before. Tom Garrett, our front rower, is back. He was just at Siddle before as well. We've always got to unearth these guys. Tough without your own academy and reserves. You've got to go looking in places that other people don't look. But that's where sometimes you find these hidden gems. And to be honest, I get more pleasure out of seeing them when they make it into being a regular championship player. Then it's good that you can do that. If you had the money, it's dead easy to just get a Super League guy that's out of contract, throw a decent money at him. He's going to be good enough for a year or two. But I do get a lot more pleasure out of getting a guy that's totally unproven. Nobody knows about him. He plays in a friendly. Everyone's asking who that is, and then he just turns into a regular championship player. So, like I say, I like doing that anyway, but that's something we have to do at Dewsbury.
Good luck and stay safe, Lee.
Cheers, pal.
Lee, just wanted to sort of start off really. The past sort of 12 months for you as a coach and the playing staff at Dewsbury, what's it been like? Because, I mean, there's obviously been so much uncertainty around and perhaps lads training and not knowing if you're going to be playing again and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's been rubbish, hasn't it? Let's be honest. It's obviously been hard for everybody anyway, just something that none of us have ever come across before. And you wouldn't have ever imagined it, would you? If someone had said, this is what's going to happen, you just wouldn't believe it. If you're watching a movie, you'd never believe it either. So just having your kids off school and all that, and having to homeschool, not going back one day and then being off again now, it's just mad. Rugby point of view, it's been difficult for us because we started off well. If you was asking me if this had happened the year before, I might have been happy. The we were in championship for another year. I could probably have a massive turnover of players and done what I really wanted to do a bit quicker. Whereas this time we started off well, and we obviously didn't want anything like that to happen. We wanted to really kick on, carry on the early season form for a full season, finish higher up in the table. That means more distribution money and build sort of that way. And that was the plan that I had, really. We were fortunate in that we've probably kept everybody pretty much that was in the 17. Lost a handful, but we feel like we've replaced them well enough. I mean, the frustrating bit again last year, we kept sort of hanging on, thinking we might come back. It wasn't a case of, right, we've locked down in March, that'll be it till next February. We kept thinking that we'd come back. Who would have thought we'd have been off for that long? Then when we saw signs of Super League coming back, we definitely thought we'd be back as well. then when that came apparent, there was talk of a shorter season or autumn tournament. So we were wanting to enter that. Never thought that everyone would just all of a sudden rule themselves out one by one with an announcement on the Twitter pages that they just didn't want to enter it. So yeah, frustrating all along. And then you just end up being thankful that you're allowed back training then. And that's what we did in November. So it's been hard because even when you went back in November, it were a bit looser and you thought maybe, right, normal pre-season, we'll start the season in Feb, we'll have friendlies Boxing Day in January. Then it became apparent that wouldn't happen either. So you were like, right, how long are we going to be training for here? So it's just been a bit like that really, but I'm just really hopeful that now this does start in a few weeks' time with us friendlies and then the Challenge Cup, then obviously it can all be positive from now on.
Yeah. In terms of the lads and what they do for work, are there many who are in a situation where they could work from home, or are a lot of them out and about and likely to be bumping into other people in their work?
All different. We have people working in schools, colleges, guys that have not missed a day's work. They've just never stopped. They do a manual job outside. Some are classed as key workers, whether it's working on electrical lines and things like that, working in schools, doing bits. So they've literally just not had a day off. So it's been different for them in that it's not been as busy wherever they've been, but they've just been out continuously. Others that have been on and off furlough when work's dried up or when they couldn't work anymore. Others that have probably got laid off and gone back elsewhere. Just everything, really. Everything. Quite a few. There's a few working from home, a few that work in gyms that have opened, closed again. So they've all been hit differently. But that's just what it's been across the country and across the world, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess like so the big thing for everyone is you've actually got some fixtures to look forward to now. Like I say, friendlies, the Challenge Cup, and then obviously the Championship getting underway. I mean, even though it's going to be behind closed doors for now, and even when crowds do come back, it might have to be reduced capacity. And that, I guess the big thing is just actually being able to get out there and play, whatever the circumstances are, is the big thing for everyone.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, it's going to be so weird when we go out for even these friendlies when there's no crowd there, getting dressed separately, turning up changed, getting straight off after a game and stuff. It's totally alien to us. So that's going to be initially weird. We're going to have to do that for probably a good month out with 6 weeks at least. Then when you start seeing maybe smaller crowds coming, we'll have to change it all again. I don't know if when crowds are allowed, then it'll be sort of right back to normal. You can go in the bars and things. It probably won't. So it's just going to be, it's going to be strange all along. But I think it'll ease as the season goes on. So it'll be in a good way. It'll get better, I think, as the season goes on. But to start with, yeah, it's going to be strange. It's going to be strange because even when you have small crowds, you at least have your family watching. You have people there with you. You have your kids watching you and stuff like that. You see the same old faces, after a game that you talk to and that's just not going to be there. So it will be very strange.
And just finally for me, I know you said a bit about sort of like some staff at the club had worked at CAS and places like that, so they sort of know the protocols from Super League. What are the biggest things you've learned from them that you've about adapting to this sort of very different way of doing things?
I think just try to make sure that you don't have an outbreak. So I mean, at the end of the day, you could have everybody mixing. You could have all gone in the gym together, all done your normal training. There's not a safety issue as in people getting injured. Your safety issue is if one person brings COVID in. Once you've mixed like that, there's a hell of a good chance that that's going to spread across everybody. But then also you could not trace who that person has been in contact with. So you would literally have to close down and all isolate for 2 weeks. Mm. So that's been the main sort of point to get across to staff and players of how to behave. Unless you all want 2 weeks totally off from work and training, you need to adhere to these rules. And by doing that, that's allowed us to stop any outbreaks and nip anything in the bud before it spreads. So when the odd person has had to isolate or actually got it themselves, it's just been them. They've stayed away. Yeah, it's been annoying for that person. They lose progress because they're not training. The more you go on in pre-season, the harder you're going. To a lad, though, it doesn't feel harder because they're just getting fitter and fitter as you go along. But if you all of a sudden chuck 2 weeks in there where you can't do anything, and I'll be honest, we've had lads that have got it who suffer a bit longer than others. Some come back in, look totally fine and get on with it, no problem. Whereas others, takes them a little bit longer. They've got to go through a bit of a protocol before they jump back in. So you're almost talking it could wipe you out for 3 or 4 weeks of the full training. Now that's a big chunk then when you then come back in, because the lads have just kept progressing. I mean, that January one, that were horrible, because we'd gone up to December, mid-December, knowing that we were going to have 10 days off before we came back in January. But obviously we didn't want any longer than that. The 10 days were a good sort of break from our first block of pre-season. So then when we were waiting to train that day and got the message that afternoon that you're not going to train for 2 weeks, it almost led to us having like 4 weeks off. So we'd done, I think it was 9 week good block, getting somewhere near, to then 4 weeks off. Well, you'd never put that in a million years in a pre-season plan. But then you had to backtrack on what you'd actually been doing. It was stage 1 with no contact, pretty limited stuff. Whereas we'd been doing more than that in December. So not only was it 4 weeks of doing nothing, you then had to go backwards from what you were doing. It was a really strange scenario, and it's probably set people back a bit. Not just us, obviously everybody, but nowhere near would you plan your pre-season like that. So it's just been working around those stuff, and remains to be seen what everyone will be like, I suppose.
Yeah. Nice stuff. Thanks, Lee.
Cheers, Matt.
Hi, Lee. Just a quick one about friendlies. They're obviously always important, but this year, certainly they're probably going to be even more important, having not played a game for a year. You're going to be playing Wakefield. That's the one that's announced already. So how important are those friendlies going to be?
Yeah, all right, Alex. Yeah, they are going to be. We've gone a bigger squad this year purposely because of what we think is going to be ahead of us. I need to see a lot of those guys play. We've got some lads that have come out of academies, not quite cracked it in Super League. Lads that have stepped up from League One. Other guys have got from different places. And you can do all the training you want, but you need to see them against live opposition, playing in a proper game. So from that point of view, we need it. You'd normally have had a Boxing Day run out and probably, your season would have started by now, wouldn't it? So you'd have had all your friendlies. And you'd have seen these guys in 3 games maybe. So you'd have had a clear picture of where they're going to sit in your squad. Whereas we haven't. We've trained. They all look good. All got a good attitude. Fitness-wise, everything like that, they look like they could play a part. But until you see them in a game, you don't quite know. So we're going to have 2 friendlies. I think one will be announced this week. So, they're all going to get a run out. The first one probably is going to be a bit strange because I need to see everybody play. And you wouldn't normally go with 25, 26 players in a friendly, but I'm going to have to do on this one, just so we can clearly see them play. That might narrow down again to the Wakefield game, which will then narrow down to 17 for our Whitehaven Cup game. From a point of view of just playing, it's going to be so important because they haven't played since last mid-March. If you played in that one, if you hadn't played a couple of weeks before that, you've already gone 12 months without playing. So just purely from getting out there and playing, it's going to be strange. Someone else asked me before, so I don't think some people are going with friendlies, but how do you know if someone can even handle 80 minutes? You're not. So I think we're going to play the 2. Everyone will play probably half a game around in the first one. Women narrowing numbers down will play a bit longer in the second one, and then they'll probably be ready. Well, might be ready for full games against Whitehaven. But to go from not playing straight into no friendlies and 1 competitive game, I won't quite be comfortable with doing that.
The rule changes that are coming in is an obvious way that the championship will be different this year. But it's been a year since it's been played at all. So I do expect the championship to be played in a different way this year.
Yeah. There's going to be so many unknowns. Like we don't know, if games are going to have to be postponed. We don't know if people are going to be missing so many players each week. Just like the game day itself to start with is going to be so strange everywhere you go. Some are going to have you splitting into 2 changing rooms. Some are going to have you changing in a bar somewhere. It's going to be so different. So each week will be a bit of a different challenge, especially when you're going away. then the no fans part, coming out and in of different ways. It is going to be different. Super League got used to it quickly because you were playing all your games at Headingley or St Helens, weren't you? Whereas at the moment, it looks like we're just going to be playing everybody at the grounds, and everyone's going to have a different way of how they do stuff, and we're going to have to cope with that bit first before I even think about the game. But yeah, it's going to be different. The rule changes obviously have been in ages, but we haven't played them yet. You've got the issue of people are just not going to be quite at the physical peak, are they, to start with? It's impossible. They're just not going to be. So you could see early doors some random scorelines and some random performances. And I don't think any coaches or players can really be blamed to begin with on anything, because nobody will have been able to do the pre-season they'd normally want. They would have had to adapt to it. Certainly contact-wise, they've had to leave it right up until now to be doing it. So you've nowhere near done as long as contact as what you normally do. As we've just said, you'd have already played like quite a few friendlies already, to start a season, whereas we're trying to cram it all in now. So it's going to be different. The way the game's refereed in the Championship, I always find is a little bit different anyway to Super League. It's almost like they accept it's going to be slower, so they ref it slower when there's no need to do. Watching a lot of the NRL and Super League stuff, they were refereed differently totally between them as well. I mean, in some games in Super League, you couldn't even tell if that 6 again rule was in, because you'd go through a full game and I don't think it was given sometimes. So if that's going to be the case at our level, certainly that rule, which is a major change, it might not be as different as what we all think, because like I say, some of the time it just never got given. It just sort of, the game seems slower, if anything. I think a big one will be the ball in play. It's going to be in play a lot more. With your 6 again, that takes out 30 seconds of passing a ball through 3 pair of hands to your kicker, who then puts it at 40 metres downfield, then gets passed in again. That's obviously taken out. Removal of scrums, guys walking down and not packing down 30 seconds, that's obviously gone out. So I think that's the one that might catch people out, just purely the ball being in play longer. Because whereas you might normally have a guy that does a 20-minute stint, that might come down a little bit because he's doing a lot more work in that time now. The ball's in play a lot longer. So I'm guessing as much as you guys at the moment, but they're the things I can see that might make a difference. And that's maybe you're having to do a lot more work while you're on, certainly for your middle guys. But again, we're all sort of playing around with it in our heads, and we'll see. That's probably another reason why the friendlies are good. We're just seeing how they will be refereed and how they work. But like I say, I certainly think for that first month, 6 weeks, there could be some strange results and strange performances, and people will adapt to them as they go on.
So would it be fair to say that this year more than ever, it perhaps isn't really what squad you have on paper that determines how successful you are, but how you adapt to all these different things that are going to be different in the Championship this year?
Oh yeah, it could be. Yeah, it could be. I mean, obviously we all do it. We all look at the names and squad numbers when they come out, and you think, wow, yeah, they've got that many players that have played Super League for so long. But they've all been out of the game for a year. Even some of these Super League guys didn't actually play when it came back, or they've been injured and they're not getting any younger. So, you can easily sit there and sort of predict your finishing table. You go from who's spent the most money, who's got the most established players, and you go down. But there's so much more going into it this year, I think. Like you said, it could be who adapts best. It might just be that actually that team there, they're younger, they're fitter, they've done a lot more running than that team, and it come down to fitness. Like I said, a lot of unknowns, and there'll be a lot of adapting going on as the season goes on.
Thanks, Lee. That's all from me.
One from me. You sort of alluded to it a little bit there, but you look at some of the squads in the Championship, and I've just been looking at the fixtures. Probably 5 of them at least have been spending big. And you mentioned you're bringing players in from Siddle. You got York have been bringing people in from Wakefield and Leeds, and Toulouse have been signing people from top Super League clubs. How did you prepare for a season like that, and how competitive can you be on your small budget?
Well, I don't know. That's not something new, is it? That's been going on now for the last, 10 years maybe, where the distribution in this division has gone from 1st to 14th or 1st to 12th, and it has been a bit lopsided. So in that respect, it's nothing new. You know, we've always seen those top few clubs spending loads of money because they seem to have good backers and other money coming in. Then they've got the most distribution money. It's not easy, you know. With a lot of the players you see them sign, you've shown some interest in them. I mean, you've been in the picture, or you might have spoiled some of them, but you just know when it comes down to money, you can get blown out of the water totally when it comes down to it. And that's why you see some of the names and people go into certain clubs. That's just a lot of what it comes down to. What we end up with is certainly guys coming here for the right reasons. They're not coming for the money at Dewsbury, and they can generally probably get maybe more elsewhere sometimes. But what we find and what we end up with is a hard-working bunch, and that's certainly what we've got now. But let's not forget, I mean, we've got people like Paul Sykes, Liam Finn, Michael Knowles, Chris Anakin, Adam Ryder, Matt Fleming. You know, when you go through it, you know, we're not a bad team ourselves, to be fair. I just think we've always got to look and be creative with who we're bringing in. We can't just open a checkbook and get that random guy who's been released by a Super League club. You know, it'd be easy if we could do that, but we can't. So we have got to keep looking. You know, we get numerous lads coming on trial that have been recommended to us. Could be from the student game, amateur game. Could be to someone that somebody knows, and we'll always have a look. Other clubs don't do that. They don't need to do. But I like that. It keeps me on my toes. It makes me have to keep working hard and look at people from outside the game. And it probably shows that actually we do give people a chance at ours. And if you're good enough, you'll get in. And you know, 2 years ago it was different, but last year it seemed to work. You know, nobody probably had us down for winning a few of those early games, but we did. And Halifax and Widnes both had bigger budgets than us last year, and they will again this year. But it didn't stop us beating them.
Thanks, Lee.
No worries.
Well, hi, Lee. I was just looking at your squad for this year, and you must have the most experienced number 6 and 7, possibly in World Rugby League. How important are Paul Sykes and Liam Finn to your plans for this year?
Yeah, no, you're wrong. I've seen load of Masters teams with older guys than those two. But actually, normal teams, no, nobody's as old as those two as an halfback pairing. No, they are. They still. I know them personally. I know I've played alongside both of them when I was playing myself. But yeah, they are. They're good guys and they train well. You know, they keep themselves in good shape. They're not just guys that we wheel out in the Zimmer frames for a game day. You know, they train hard as well, and they're a good influence on those around them. When you look out before you start in fields, the two guys either running round or kicking balls over posts. So those two. So they're such a good influence, and they make my job a bit easier, really. When you're bringing in younger lads, unproven guys, they can just look straight over at those two. Be dead easy for them to just clock in, clock out, pick the money up and go. But that's not what they're like. You know, that's why they're still going, because they look after themselves. They still go hard in training, and they're really good for what we're about. And obviously, I know they can't go on forever, but you know, before lockdown, there weren't many halfback pairings that were, you know, doing as well as them. And well, it remains to be seen whether that enforced time off will be a help or hindrance to them. But going off pre-season, you know, they're both in good condition. Both look good when you do the opposed stuff. So I've no reason to think they'll be any worse than last year. They're not getting any younger, obviously, so that never helps. But yeah, listen, they're both good guys to have around, and they set a good example for the younger guys and everybody. So at the moment, you know, they're such a good influence for us.
You've given the number 9 shirt to Reece Butterworth, obviously a player with lots of potential, hiked a lot in his earlier days coming out of the Brantford Academy. I guess their 2 experience is going to be keen in bringing him on as well. Yeah,
the reason on squad number bit is we had to save money on kit. So because we lost a 9, we can then scrub his name off and put Butterworth on it. No, we obviously Dom Speakman went. Dom Speakman's a really good player. And he was really good for us. But just through COVID and his gym opening and closing and people leaving on him and stuff, he had to just concentrate on that. He couldn't commit to to doing pre-season and playing a full season. So we had to act on that one. Such a vital position for you. So when I started looking around and inquiring, I noticed that he weren't getting a look in at Huddersfield. I wasn't quite sure why. So once I inquired, I worked out he didn't quite fit in the plans, and then we moved and acted on it. And he's in a similar mould to Dom. He's not just a guy that'll just, you won't notice, where he just makes 50 tackles a game, passes the ball on. He likes to try things and do things. And I think Finney especially be good for him. Sort of picking and choosing when you play some of the players that you might do rather than just doing them all the time. Maybe that's where he's fallen short a little bit. He's maybe trying too hard when he gets the opportunities. But just as he's kept training week after week, he's got better. He's been a bit more selective on when he plays and when he runs and stuff like that. But he's certainly got something about him, that's for sure. He's already got a good highlights reel because he tries quite a lot. But he's got some really good skill, like his passing, kick out of dummy half, and he's got a knack of scoring and creating stuff. So we've got another 9, Sam Day, who likes to score, really good runner. I think those two will complement each other well. I think Reese is the thing I like about Reese is it's not just he's played 1 or 2 Super League and that's it, and he's just an academy guy. He's played at Batley before, and he's already played at this level and shown he can do it. And I think I like that part of it, rather than just getting an academy lad who you're never quite sure what they're going to be like against blokes. Reese has already proven he can do it.
You mentioned some of the rule changes for next year. What do you make of the 2040 kick? Do you think we'll see many of those in competition?
Nonsense. What an absolute nonsense of a rule that is. No, I don't think we'll see it. I don't think you'll see many of them. I mean, if you get to the point where you've been stuck in your 20 on tackle 5, you obviously get someone's kicking out of the 20 and it might randomly go in, but it takes some balls for someone to do it, sort of tackle 1 or 2, wouldn't it? Because generally after that, you're out of your 20. So you'd have to be a really early tackle count kick to do it and then nail it to the opposition's 40. So the only time I think you could possibly see it is later in a game when someone's chasing it. But even then, I think you might see one of them all season. So what the point in that rule is, I'm not sure.
Something you don't think many coaches will be encouraging their players to do then?
Well, I've just answered my own question. We haven't been practicing it, let's put it that way.
Final one from me. Challenge Cup draw gives you a trip up to Whitehaven. As you say, we don't know what games are going to be like without crowds. I guess that's one positive of going up there without crowds, but still a long trip and a tough trip as well.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't want that one really. If you're looking at the draws, you didn't want London, West Wales, or any Cumbrian ones. You just didn't want the trip up on the bus with your face masks on, all spread out. But that's what we've got. Someone told me the last 15 years they've drawn Whitehaven away something like 8 or 9 times, so it were probably to be expected anyway. Obviously, we went there on a cold, wet Wednesday night and we did a job. So we're hoping that on a lovely, warm, breezy Sunday afternoon we can do the same.
Fingers crossed on the weather. Good luck for the season. Cheers, Lee.
Cheers.